And we have returned from the break here on In My Own Words with yours truly, Stephen Smith. Before the Crimson Tide took to Bryant-Denny Stadium on last week for its first scrimmage of the preseason, about 2 hours before this happened, the Louisville Cardinals of the Atlantic Coast Conference had its media days, and Dan Koob, who covers the Cardinals for CBS, was live on the scene reporting the event. One of the guys that Koob was in high conversation, high talks with happened to be redshirt sophomore wide receiver Dez Fitzpatrick. Fitzpatrick, of whom a season ago had 45 catches, 699 receiving yards, both areas of which he finished second on the team. His 9 touchdowns was a team high, and he averaged 15.53 yards per catch. Fitzpatrick said some things last week that a lot of people viewed as very cocky, bulletin board material for Alabama, as the Tide will play the Cardinals Saturday, September 1st of 2018, Orlando, Florida, first game of the season. First off, you have to give the man credit for having confidence in his guys and his team, especially in this day and age of college football and in life in general. Me personally, I consider myself to be a highly confident guy. You have to have that. But in this case, was Fitzpatrick more so cocky than confident? Remains to be seen. Crimson Tide takes on the Louisville Cardinals in Orlando, Florida to start 2018 season. Now, to dive in more so into the actual comments Fitzpatrick made according to some video gathered by Dan Koob, he was thrown the question of the matchup against Alabama. How does he feel like Louisville's receiving core will match up against the Crimson Tide secondary? And the redshirt sophomore basically came out and said, look, I think our guys are 1,000% better than Alabama's defensive backs. I think talent-wise, we have the upper hand. We match up better. If the quarterback, JaJuan Pass, is dropping the ball in the right spot, if we're running our routes, we can shut them up. That statement right there, I did not see as cocky. Once again, that statement was just him showing confidence in his guys, showing confidence in the quarterback play and the talent around him. Now, what dove into the cockiness was the continuation of what he said when he dove into Alabama doesn't beat teams. Alabama doesn't beat players. These guys beat themselves. They're drop passes. Guys are nervous about the mystique of Alabama. If you just play them like you're playing a team like Kentucky, they're human, you're human, you can beat these guys. That's where the cockiness came in. Because with that statement, Dez Fitzpatrick has directly challenged the biggest part of the Nick Saban process. Nick Saban carries every inch of that process in high esteem, but there is one line of that process, we all know it, that he holds the highest. Make his butt quit. And I say butt to keep it PG. We all know the actual term he uses. So, Nick Saban's MO, make his butt quit, make your opponent's butt quit, break the will, spirit, motivation, drive of your opponent, wear them down. And Fitzpatrick's statement of Bama doesn't beat teams, Bama doesn't beat the opponent beats itself. That's where the cockiness lies in. And I would not be surprised if Nick Saban has already visited Craig Kulagowski, defensive line coach, Tosh Lapoy, defensive coordinator, and has said, guys, unleash the dogs. I'm releasing you. Hold nothing back. We're going to shut this kid's mouth. Unleash everything in the arsenal. Would not be surprised if that conversation has already happened. Now, the one thing that plays well in the Dez Fitzpatrick's corner is the size of Louisville's receivers. Fitzpatrick himself is 6'2". Jalen Smith, who returns as Louisville's leading receiver, is 6'4". Seth Dawkins is 6'3". The shortest guy on the team that's kind of their Percy Harvin type is Travion Samuel, who's 5'7". In recent years, what's given Alabama the biggest problem is the big body physical receiver that can elevate, snatch the ball out of the air, box you out, shield the football from the body of the DB. That's been the biggest issue with Alabama's secondary, with the exception of last season. When you talk about defending a lot of these big targets, if you remember when Alabama took on Clemson, it had to take on Deion Kane, Mike Williams, Jordan Leggett at tight end, although Hunter Renfrow, small guy, former walk-on, was the main guy that burned Alabama during those matchups. And then, of course, Ole Miss with all the weapons it had under Hugh Freeze, DeMaurier Stringfellow, Laquan Treadwell, Cody Core, Quincy Adeboyejo, Evan Ingram. Big-bodied targets has always been an issue with the Crimson Tide secondary, with the exception of last season. Now, where Dez Fitzpatrick's comments come in, I think the biggest knock on that is this is not Lamar Jackson returning to quarterback. Lamar Jackson, Heisman winner, 3,660 passing yards a season ago, 1,601 rushing yards, 45 total touchdowns, 10 interceptions. Balled out last year with an offensive line that was not an elite group. This was an offensive line that struggled to protect Jackson in the pocket. Good thing he possessed a lot of athleticism, could break, contain, could get around, could throw on the run, and could run the football, because that pocket collapsed a number of times, a multitude of times throughout Jackson's career at Louisville. This is not Lamar Jackson, who's right now with the Baltimore Ravens. This is JaJuan Pass making his first start at being the quarterback for the Cardinals. A little bit of history on Pass here. Big guy at 6'4", 231 pounds, was a part of that 2016 recruiting cycle, was offered by a number of schools, including one, University of Alabama, with the Crimson Tide choosing to sign Jalen Hurts over JaJuan Pass in 2016. Pass, the number 9 dual-threat quarterback nationally during the 2016 recruiting process. He was number 228 on the ESPN 300. In high school, played at Carver High in Georgia, Columbus, Georgia, that being. Passed 4,412 yards in his career throwing the football, 39 passing touchdowns, 1,193 rushing yards in his career, 27 scores on the ground. Now, of course, last season, he completed 23 of 33 passes for 238 yards, 2 touchdowns in 6 games. Big-bodied guy, but he's no Lamar Jackson. How athletic really is JaJuan Pass? Because with Fitzpatrick making the comments he made, Bama doesn't beat anybody, players beat themselves, teams beat themselves, Raekwon Davis is about to have a field day. Quinnen Williams, Isaiah Buggs, LeBron Ray, these guys are about to have a field day. Because if JaJuan Pass does not have the escapability to break the pocket, evade, keep plays alive, he is going to get drilled to the turf and live on the ground due to the comments made by his wide receiver, Dez Fitzpatrick. Big body guy in JaJuan Pass, but does he have the athleticism? Brand new quarterback, brand new face, brand new sheriff holding the controls. And though Bobby Petrino has coached in the SEC before, formerly at Arkansas before going to Louisville, had his hands on the likes of guys like Ryan Mallett and Tyler Wilson, Bobby Petrino also knows the type of defense Alabama brings to the table, and he hopes to make sure that offensive line is very much so in order. As I reflect back on last season, and I understand Alabama lost 6 defensive backs to the National Football League. It's got some guys returning, leader of that group being Deontay Thompson, that look to make big-time plays this year. Alabama's pass defense was actually quite solid. It allowed one 100-yard performer in 2017, and that was Ryan Davis of Auburn in the 26-14 loss at Jordan-Hare Stadium. Ryan Davis, 11 catches for 139 yards, averaged 12.6 yards per catch, and the majority of Ryan Davis's plays were high percentage throws, tunnel screens, bubble screens, little flare routes to the outside, more so yards after the catch. Jarrett Stidham did not take a lot of deep shots in that game with Ryan Davis simply because Jeremy Pruitt blitz happy last year, and when you become blitz happy, all the opposing offense has to do is look at the hot read, get the ball out quickly, and matriculate the ball downfield that way. So the long 100-yard guy Alabama allowed last season, Ryan Davis of Auburn. As far as quarterback play is concerned, in college football, if you're completing between 60-65% of your passes, you're pretty accurate. In the NFL, it's more so 65-70%. But in college football, if you're completing between 60 and 65%, you're a pretty accurate passer. Last season, Alabama secondary gave up an average of 54.6% completion rating. Pretty darn good. 54.6%. It gave up an average of 168.4 yards per game allowed. Crimson Tide defensive backs not allowed a lot of passing yards. Matter of fact, only 2 big program quarterbacks had a high completion percentage and pretty good passing yards against Alabama in 2017. Kellen Mond of Texas A&M, 19 for 29 passing, 65.5%, 237 yards in A&M's 27-19 loss to the Crimson Tide. Kellen Mond and Jarrett Stidham, 21 of 28 passing, 75% for 237 yards. Even in the college football playoff, Alabama held both Kelly Bryant of Clemson, Jake Fromm of Georgia to just 50% completion rating. College football playoff, Alabama secondary did its job. So even with this upcoming season, you have a secondary with the likes of Deontay Thompson, Xavier McKinney, Savion Smith, Trayvon Diggs, Patrick Surtain Jr., Shaheem Carter. You've got some guys mix and match in there, but as a whole, this secondary is going to look to shut up Dez Fitzpatrick. I get the confidence he's talking about. I get it. Wants to boost up his team, want to build up his team, but you never take shots at Alabama before the season starts. Remember our good friend Nafai Leango of Vanderbilt, a man who's probably 21, 22 years old and still hasn't reached puberty. Nafai Leango, after a 14-7 win for Vanderbilt over Kansas State, thought he just made it big, thought the team just hit it big after you beat the Fighting Bill Snyders. Comes on TV, when you come to Vanderbilt, we'll show you how to play some SEC ball. Alabama, you're next. Alabama was next, and Alabama walked the dog on Vanderbilt. 59-0. Got so bad, Nafai Leango was pancaked by 2 second-team offensive linemen. Not first team, the second string. Came in and pancaked him. Then you look at, remember Ole Miss, 2017, this past year. Alabama faced them at Bryant-Denny, and Ole Miss thought it would be sly, thought it would be funny, thought it would be clever to tweet out all pictures from the 2015 matchup between the Tide and the Rebels, the one in which Ole Miss got a 43-37 win over Bama at Bryant-Denny. Alabama 5 turnovers that game. Ole Miss thought it would be cute to tweet out some old photos from that matchup. Nick Saban, Alabama. Okay, we see that. What happens? Shea Patterson drilled to the ground. Rebels lose 66-3. Got walked the dog on. That was the game in which Levi Wallace became a household name. In fact, that was the game Levi Wallace cemented his NFL draft stock. 2 interceptions, 1 return for a touchdown, was the Southeastern Conference Defensive Player of the Week. Ole Miss, slyly talking smack. Alabama, mollywops them, 66-3. And then, Florida State. First game of the season. Everybody had this built up to be the greatest opener of all time. The GOAT, 1 versus 3. This is going to be a sequel in the college football playoff. Expect to see Florida State and Alabama again. Mercedes-Benz Stadium. Big matchup here. And John Thrasher, president of FSU, you expect players to talk trash. You expect even some coaches to talk some trash here and there, even though coaches should know better. But when you talk about an administrator, presidents, chancellors, athletic directors, those should not be the ones talking trash. Those should be the ones with the most gamesmanship, keeping everything close to the vest. What you say is this: they have talent, we have talent, should be a fun game, should be interesting. Looking forward to the matchup. You keep it at that. John Thrasher, oh no. He comes out, I think we'll beat the brakes off Alabama. I think we'll beat him. I think we'll destroy him. I think we'll knock him down. President says that. And that poor president of Florida State, John Thrasher, has to sit there and watch Alabama's defense break Florida State's will. Florida State loses the game. Florida State loses its quarterback, DeAndre Francois, for the rest of the season. And Florida State ends up losing its season, as instead of being a college football playoff team, they end up finishing the regular season at 6-6, and Jimbo Fisher ends up leaving. You lose your coach, you lose your quarterback, you lose your confidence, you lose your season, all because the president, John Thrasher, comes out. You know what? I'm going to poke the bear. We're going to destroy Alabama. And Alabama just destroyed your season and had you lose your coach. You don't jump out and attack Alabama before time, but hey, Dez Fitzpatrick, confident young man. Cocky? Maybe. Bama don't beat nobody. Teams beat themselves. We will see in September. Did he sign his own death warrant and making sure that he's not going to catch a football pass? Has he signed the death warrant of his quarterback, JaJuan Pass, and being that he will not be able to get the ball off because he's too busy picking dirt out of his helmet? We'll have to wait and see, folks. Taking our final break here on In My Own Words. When we get back, we will discuss the story on the focus of Mack Wilson. Got a chance to talk to a good friend of mine that's close with Mack Wilson and describing his focus and how this man could probably be the 5th unanimous All-American linebacker at Alabama and probably the best one Nick Saban has produced. That and more on the other side of the break. We'll be right back. It's your boy, Stephen M. Smith, host of In My Own Words, the podcast. If you are a fan of this show, then I encourage you to subscribe to the Touchdown Alabama Magazine YouTube channel. Also follow the brand on Facebook, Twitter, and other forms of social media as we continue to bring you the best in Alabama football and Crimson Tide athletics.